You got Zaluzhny and Zelensky. The press has been filled with the warnings that Zaluzhny was going to be booted and Zelensky was going to replace him. Zelensky met with the General Zaluzhny and ordered him to resign. And Zaluzhny said, you can go pound sand where the sun doesn't shine. The plan was to kick out Zaluzhny and then replace him with Budanov, except then other reports come in and say, Budanov, the head of intelligence, he doesn't want it. And Sirsky, the other general, he doesn't want it. So now they're stuck with Zaluzhny. And let's not forget Victoria Nuland went over there. This because I said, oh man, if people weren't dying, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians weren't dead and maimed, this would be hilarious. This is like a comedy show that Zelensky did when he was a comedian. This is better than playing the piano with his penis. At the very time that Russia is intensifying its attacks on Ukrainian military positions, the Ukrainian political and military leadership are playing musical chairs. And you know how that game's played. People marching around in a circle, and when the music stops, they all rush to grab a chair, and there's one less chair each time. We still don't know who's going to be left standing. I'm betting Zelensky, even though he's got supposedly the backing of the United States right now. The guy with the gun usually wins. And last time I checked, Zaluzhny's got more guns than Zelensky. But hey, I could be dead wrong, and they could be carrying Zaluzhny out feet first. We had Budanov shooting. Who knows? It's a mess.
When it comes to these differences between Zelensky and Zaluzhny, what are the main areas of these differences? Is that all about mobilization that they're talking about? Is that about going on offensive or being on defensive?
The differences are artificially created. They're looking for somebody to bring the failure of the war on. So usually it's normally the military commander, except Zaluzhny insists, like he wanted to pull people out of Avdiivka, because he recognized they're in an untenable military situation. If we continue to hold there, Ukraine's going to lose troops that it cannot afford to lose and combat vehicles it cannot afford to lose. And yet Zelensky, the little comedian, insists, oh, no, we don't give up any territory. He really is sort of acting like he's channeling the ghost of Adolf Hitler, where Hitler would always issue these orders refusing to allow German troops to retreat, when a retreat was probably the best tactical move in order to preserve the force. There's that issue. Zaluzhny's more popular than Zelensky. And, Zelensky, I think, is fearful of having a military general more popular than him. He's already canceled elections and banned opposition political parties and locked up priests and restricted the media coverage. So, yeah, a true Democrat.
If they want to remove Zelensky from power, they have to force him to have some sort of election in Ukraine.
Are you talking about removing him legally or just getting rid of
it? No, legally.
Oh, yeah, legally, he'd be replaced with an election, but he postponed the election. So it's like, hey, remember that election we're going to have? We're not having it. I'm still president. That's the problem right there. He has declared himself king, essentially. Now, I don't want to present Zaluzhny as some sort of military genius or really a good-hearted man. He's just a great guy. He's not a great guy. He's a bit of a scumbag. He embraces the neo-Nazi ideology. He's been very careful to not insert the most ideologically driven troops, the Azov and the Kraken units, into the front lines where they get killed, because he wants to preserve them. Instead, he's sending cannon fodder guys, the 50-year-old, 60-year-old guys who get drugged out of their bedroom or a cafe, put in a uniform, and sent to the front. Zaluzhny is part of the problem, too.
In this conflict between Zelensky and Zaluzhny right now, what's your understanding on the Biden administration? Who's the favorite one for the Biden administration?
Well, so far it's Zelensky, based upon Nuland's trip. Endorsing appears to be solidly behind Zelensky. But never trust the United States. Just go back to South Vietnam, 1962, was it? With an Diem, President Ngo Diem, Catholic boy. He was president over a country that was, more Buddhist than Catholic. And the United States, when the time came, cut the legs right out from under him, even though they had been pledging their support for it. This has happened before. Look at Muammar Gaddafi. He cut a deal with the United States, and the United States completely betrayed him. He wound up with, I guess, what you'd call a bayonet enema. Someone was shoving a bayonet up his backside, and they killed him. I have become ashamed of my country. My ancestors didn't fight for this kind of wanton violence, overthrowing other countries and other governments at will, bombing whoever we want, whenever we want. That's not what we fought for. We fought for freedom. We fought for a constitution that would respect the rights of the individuals, a constitution that said that the rights of the individuals took precedence over the right of the collective. And now we've come almost full circle where the right of the collective is being asserted at the expense of the individual. And the United States is waging war in Yemen, waging war in Syria, all undeclared, all unconstitutional, and facilitating war in Ukraine. I'm sure your foreign listeners and viewers were thoroughly amused by the United States outrage last week on the 28th of January when the Iranian-backed terrorists hit our base in Jordan. It was, oh my God, we can't stand for that. Iran's going to pay. Iran's going to pay. So let me see if I got this straight. You're saying that if Iran provided weapons to this Hezbollah Shia group in Iraq, and those guys carry out an attack and kill your soldiers, that by God, it's Iran that's got to pay the freight? Absolutely. That's our position. Oh, guys, I don't know if you paid attention, but you've been arming Ukraine to the teeth. Ukraine has been attacking and killing Russian civilians. So by your logic, Russia ought to come over and bomb the living hell out of it. Oh, no, wait a second. That would be, the hypocrisy. All of this gets back to this so-called rules-based international order. And all it is the United States saying, we're going to play a game. We'll decide what the rules are. We may or may not tell you what they are, but the bottom line is we win, okay? No matter what you do, we win. And if you do anything we don't like, we get to hit you. And even if we hit you, you don't get to hit us back. Okay, everybody understand? Great, let's play. Who wants to sign up for that? And that's why I see, the rest of the world's going, you know what? I'm pretty sick and tired of this game. I no longer want the United States to be telling me what the rules are. We prefer, let's have it up on the table what the rules are. Yeah, if you militarily threaten somebody else and carry out attacks against them, yeah, you can be attacked, which is exactly what Russia did to Ukraine. Ukraine, for almost 9 years prior to the start of the special military operation, was participating fully with NATO and carrying out military exercises on Russia's border, on Ukrainian territory, that represented a clear, direct threat to Russia. And that if the shoe was on the other foot, and Russia was conducting those kinds of exercises in Mexico or in Canada, the United States would view that as a belligerent act and worthy of attacking to stop it.
When it comes to the military-industrial complex of the US, if they were to learn some sort of lessons through the war in Ukraine, what would be the lessons that they would get by this war in Ukraine in terms of their weapons and their equipments?
The weapons are too expensive, number one. They're too fragile, number two. And they don't do well in the combat environment. Well, that's been the bottom line. What the United States is in a position because we lack strategy. Now, I know you've had Andrei Martyanov on your program and talked about Andrei's books, and I don't know if you've had time to read them, but Andrei really makes a very logical case that in Russia, they have a national defense strategy. And that strategy entails, what do we need to do to prepare our nation to have weapons that our nation could fight off an invader? They're not thinking about what weapon systems do we need to launch offensive operations to conquer other countries. Their weapons inventory is constructed largely of weapon systems for fighting invaders and destroying invaders. And to that end, when they allocate money to build certain weapon systems, whether it's a tank or it's a drone or it's an artillery piece or an artillery shell or a jet fighter, it's all done within the context of a particular strategic plan. That weapon system is built to meet the needs of that plan. When the defense industry in Russia sets out to build something, they are guided by that. They're not worried about, hey, this member of the Duma, who is a representative, selects your republic in Russia, and that he's got this many people that he wants to get jobs, so we'll donate campaign money to him, and then we'll end up putting a factory out in his district, even though it doesn't make sense. That doesn't happen. That's exactly what happens in the United States. And in the United States, the weapons that are being proposed, it's more like, the Pentagon's more like a kid before Christmas, where, mom and dad said, son, what would you like for Christmas? Oh boy, I'd like a pony and a Harley Davidson motorcycle. A Lamborghini would be nice. Get me a Lamborghini. And, you make these outrageous requests, and the parents will go out and get it for them. And the way it works is these military industrial corporations like Raytheon, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, those are the big three. They will meet, they've got lobbyists in Washington, or they work through a lobbyist, actually my former neighbor. And his job is to put together dinners, 2 or 3 dinners a week, fundraisers, and members of Congress will come. And then these representatives from Lockheed Martin or General, they walk in with, I think they're limited to like a $5,000 check. Or so they got a $5,000 corporate check. And then, 10 of the guys who work at General Dynamics, you know what? They also wanted to contribute. So there's another fight. So it's just a money moving machine. So that congressman gets that money. Then when it comes time to appropriate the money, approve the money to be spent, Oh yeah, I'm all in favor. Bought and paid for. It's a form of prostitution, except in this kind of prostitution, the ones getting screwed are the American public, and there's no satisfaction involved whatsoever. They're just being taken advantage of. What you wind up with are these exorbitantly expensive weapon systems, like the M1 Abrams tank. It requires a level of maintenance that you would associate with a Formula One race car. Those cars can go really fast. Have you ever been to one of those races? If you're just staring straight ahead, all you're going to see is a blur of color running past your face. That's how they're building these tanks. These tanks, they're not going to be operating at the 24 hours of Le Mans. They're not going to be running around the track at Daytona. They are out in combat conditions in mud and dirt and snow and rain. The maintenance requirements to keep the filters clean is such that it's very difficult to keep those tanks engaged. It's the same for weapon system after weapon system. Look at the Tomahawk cruise missile. They're using Tomahawks now to attack missile sites in Yemen that are launching, let's say, $100,000 missile. Those Tomahawks cost $2 million. Spend $2 million to take out $100,000 of your stuff. Well, we don't have an unlimited. The United States does not have an unlimited supply. I think the inventory now down is less than 3,000 total. If they're firing them off at 50 Tomahawks a day, remember Donald Trump in 2017 launched cruise missile strike on a base in Syria, Sharat. He launched 59 Tomahawk missiles. That's almost $120 million worth of missiles right there, and there were not ready replacements for it. So it's just there's a complete disconnect of what the United States military-industrial corporations put into the field, and that soldiers use.
There, when it comes to the Patriot systems and the same type of weapons on the part of Russians, how do you compare these type of weapons? Because they're so important for this type of battle, this battle of attrition.
Yeah. The old Soviet S-300, which I believe was created in the 1970s, it has better performance in stopping incoming missiles than the Patriot missile battery does, which is a much newer weapon. The Patriot can't hold a candle to the Russian S-400, Russian S-500, and the new one coming online is the Russian S-550, which deals with space weapons. It's an expensive piece of junk. It's been good for its shareholders. I believe that's Raytheon that makes it. But it's not able to stop incoming. Hell, it has trouble stopping drones, slow-flying drones, much less missiles. They cannot stop a hypersonic missile, a Kinsal or Iskander. All it's done is made the shareholders of that military-industrial corporation quite wealthy.
Taking into account the problems that you've mentioned with the military-industrial complex, do you think if they were to modify the system, the whole system, is there any short-term solution for that?
No, there's none at all. Yeah, let's just say that they woke up tomorrow and said, okay, by God, we're going to get back to doing what we were doing. We're going to build stuff. They've shut down the factories. They can't just, wave a magic wand. This is not Harry Potter. The factories that used to be in the Kansas City area are gone. Steel factories, automobile factories, oil facilities that were processing petroleum and, refineries. Gone. Moreover, a significant number of the essential minerals that are required are overseas. For example, what's it called? Nitric cellulose. So what's used to make gunpowder? Well, the major supplier of gunpowder is where? China, Russia. United States needs gunpowder. Do you think China and Russia are going, oh my God, Uncle Sam, get over here, buddy. We'll hook you up, give you as much as you want? No, that's not happening. They're going to say, hey, sorry, we're all out. Can't help you. And then the United States is, oh, we got a lot of missiles that we're supposed to make, and a lot of artillery shells and bullets, or ammunition. And oh my God, what are we going to do? That's a good question. I just learned that the other day. They just recently had a major gun show out in Las Vegas called SHOT Show. And it's the largest gathering of arms manufacturing, weapon, gunpowder, everything to do with guns, firearms. And the folks doing the gunpowder discussion were saying, it's bad. Long answer to a short question. There's nothing the United States can do in the short term that's going to make a difference in the short term. They might get a turnaround in a year, maybe.
The long-term solution, in your opinion, does that include just breaking this monopoly of these 5-6 companies who are dominating the military-industrial complex? Is that going to be considered as a part of solution for the long-term strategy?
Well, again, you got to come back and say, what is your purpose? What's your goal? from the standpoint of the United States. If you say, well, we want to keep the United States safe and secure, all right, then shut down the damn border. Deploy your military. Let's recall our military. We don't need AFRICOM. Sorry, let the Africans take care of Africa. We don't need troops in Europe either, European Command. Let's bring those troops back. And we certainly don't need troops in Southern Command scattered throughout Central and South America. Bring them back. They all go to the border. We defend the border. You know, they're having trouble with recruitment. We want to protect the United States from foreign threats. Well, so that means we want to do a couple of things. One, reestablish the militias. So everybody in every community, and you can make it male and female, you know, from the age of 17 or 18 to 21, must serve in the militia. And as part of serving in the militia, that means they'd be trained with firearms, they'd get some rudimentary military training, but the training would be focused upon, like the Swiss, self-defense, defending the country. Then you focus on what do we need to do from having a missile defense system so that we cannot be attacked. We have a greater guarantee of that. So, you know, there are a variety of things you do, but it would so shake up the U.S. economy that it would probably risk a financial collapse, because the United States economy right now is addicted like a drug addict to spending hundreds of billions of dollars on defense weapons and defense systems and these defense corporations without any regard to actually how that stuff's going to be used. So anyone that dares to come in to change that is really, you know, I think they're going to be in for some great pushback.
The governor of Texas says to Biden, stop playing with Putin, do something substantial in the interest of the United States. What would be the act that the Biden administration should do in terms of what the governor of Texas is advocating for?
Shut down the border with Mexico. Tell Mexico that you're not going to import another single product into the United States. There will not be another export of product from the United States to Mexico until you control your own damn borders. Do not let another migrant convoy come up across the Mexican-Guatemalan border down around Esquipulas. No, stop. Patrol your side of the border to keep these people from crossing. Get your cartels under control. That's what you do for starters. You deploy then troops all along that border, along with razor wire, along with sensors. And anybody that gets across, they are immediately picked up and detained and deported within a day. You know, but the word's gotten out. Hey, baby, you get across the river. You're good, man. You're going to get hooked up with some free benefits and Social Security, and life is great. You get to live better than any American citizen who's below the poverty line. That's finally why Abbott got up off of his crippled ass. I mean, he's confined to a wheelchair, but he acted like he was politically confined to a wheelchair for the last 3 years. He didn't do a damn thing to stop this flood of migrants. Why is he doing it now? Because now it's a political problem. It's a political problem for him. It's a political problem for Eric Adams, mayor of New York. It's a political problem for Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., and this joker out in Chicago. It's all of a sudden, it's become a bipartisan political problem. And now they're trying to blame it on Trump, which is, you know, absurd. But, you know, this is where the real threat is. We lost 3 soldiers in Jordan, and that story is still not clear. But, you know, we still don't know the story there. But we get 3 people killed there, and oh my God, we got to go to war with Iran. Meanwhile, last year, well over 100,000 people died of fentanyl overdoses from drugs that were brought in from Mexico. No big deal. Okay, yeah, it's a problem, but it's just 100,000. There are a lot of Americans now increasingly upset about that and pushing back.
When it comes to the main goal of this conflict in Ukraine, that the Republicans and Democrats, they are so united in this goal of weakening Russia and sending some sort of message to China. New defense minister of China just recently said that they're totally supporting Russia in this conflict against Ukraine. How successful was the neocon type of agenda in this war in Ukraine?
Oh, it's been a complete failure. This unjustified animus directed at Russia, personalize it by specifically accusing Putin of every possible misdeed, being an authoritarian dictator who takes all political opponents and locks them up and doesn't allow free expression, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they use that to justify the United States spending literally hundreds of billions of dollars to try to get rid of Vladimir Putin. We've said it before in your program, and I'll say it again. The United States wants to carve Russia up into smaller parts, say 5 different regions at least, and take the resources for ourselves, just like some parasite wants to latch on to Russia's body and suck the life out of it. That's what the West wants, and that's why they hate Putin. Because Putin finally understood that was what was going on, and he said, no, that's not going to continue. That stops now. And he gave the oligarchs a choice. Either you start working to rebuild this country, or you can get the hell out and we'll keep your money. It was bad that several of these oligarchs, and surprisingly, a large number of them were Jewish, and they were connected with Jewish people in the West. That's sort of one of these reasons that there is some of the anti-Semitism is directed against them, because they were seen as taking advantage of Russia's economic situation.
You talk about this conflict between the United States and Iran in Jordan. They were hitting these American forces. What was the problem there?
If that attack had taken place in Syria and they'd killed 3 soldiers, you wouldn't have had the reaction that you've had. That's why this attack took place in Jordan. And why Jordan? Well, number one, King Abdullah has been, historically one of the best friends, if not the best friend, of the United States in the Middle East. And he's educated in the United Kingdom, speaks English as well as he speaks Arabic, has attended U.S. Special Forces military training. So he's considered really a very, very pro-U.S. guy. About 10 years ago, he was persuaded to allow the United States to set up a base. They call it Tower 22. It's an outpost. It's a staging base. So think about it. You're going to deploy someone from the 75th Ranger Regiment, who's based in the state of Washington, and you're going to deploy them to Syria. Well, how are you going to get them there? They certainly can't fly into Damascus, land at the airport, and go, "Hi, we're American soldiers. We're here to illegally occupy parts of your country." No. They can't do that. They can't put them in an airplane slow enough flying that it can drop paratroopers all over the place. So what they do is they fly into Jordan. They get processed. They get on a truck. They get on a bus. They get on a helicopter, and they're flown out up into the northeast portion of Jordan. They arrive at that base. They're processed. They get outfitted with what they need to go into Syria, and then they are deployed from there into Syria. So that was the purpose of this base. It was a logistics center. The U.S. troops that were in Syria, they needed to be resupplied. The resupply would come through that base, whether by helicopter or by truck or by some other means. That's what it was doing there. 18 miles on the other side of the border, or from Tower 22 going north, is where Al-Tanf in Syria is, which is considered a U.S. military special operations base. The U.S. forces in Syria are there ostensibly. This is what they keep saying. We're here to fight ISIS terrorism. Well, that's number one, that's a lie. Number two, that's the cover story, because they have fought and battled some of the ISIS elements, but they've also worked with some of the elements that would be considered ISIS, Islamic extremists that oppose the government of Bashar al-Assad. And within that, there is another nation in the region that also is against ISIS and wants to fight ISIS. That would be Iran. But we don't work with Iran. The United States does not work with Iran on that. We claim that we're pursuing ISIS. What we're really doing, though, are protecting oil fields that are pumping oil that a lot of it's making its way to Israel and going via Turkey. This is a money-making endeavor, and these soldiers are being asked to pay the price.
Gary, when it comes to the reaction of the Biden administration, it seems that they're sending weapons to the Middle East. Are we going to have some sort of attack on Iran?
I don't think so, because I think the Biden administration realizes if they did so, they would touch off a regional war. It'd be a war between the United States and Iran, and possibly draw in Russia and China. It'd be a regional war. It could escalate into a global war. And the United States does not have the military power to destroy Iran, short of using nuclear weapons. It just doesn't. Iran's got a strong air force. It has a strong ballistic missile defense system. It has ample supplies of ballistic missiles and cruise missiles and anti-ship missiles. Hitting Iran would be like awakening a Tasmanian devil, one of those vicious little animals. For the United States to go there and to calm it, put it under its control, require 2-3 million soldiers at least. And then from where are they going to launch? How are they going to get there? How are they going to sustain logistics? Those soldiers got to eat. Where do you bring that amount of food? You've got people like Lindsey Graham and John Bolton and others and say, "Oh yeah, we need to attack Iran." Crazy Nikki Haley, "Oh yeah, let's just kill some of their leaders." Hey, I tell you what, how about if Iran kills some of our leaders? Is that going to be a problem? Do you think the United States would go, if they killed Joe Biden, we go, "Well, we didn't like him anyway. That's okay." That's why I said these people like Haley, they're just crazy. They're out of touch with reality. They live in a little cloistered, magical world.
In your opinion, if Biden wasn't in his last year of presidency, would this attack on Iran be a boost for his position?
No, I don't think so. Whatever initially, for a day or two, people might go, "Yeah, we showed those Iranians, we kicked their ass." And then when Iran starts striking back and killing U.S. soldiers by the hundreds at the various bases scattered in the Middle East, and starts taking out U.S. ships, all of a sudden the Americans go, wait a second. I thought we hit them and that they couldn't strike back. And then when Iran strikes back, then it's a real problem. That's one of the reasons the founders of the United States, of this republic, put it in the Constitution that only Congress can declare war. Only Congress is going to get you embroiled in a fight. That the president can recommend, can ask for a declaration of war, certainly can do that. Biden is being very, very stupid by launching these military attacks without congressional authority or approval. Because if it turns sour or if it goes badly, there's nobody to blame but him. Whereas if you go to the Congress, and the Congress, the House, and the Senate say, let's bomb the crap out of Iran, and then it creates a problem. Well, hey, you guys told me to do it. I really didn't want to, but you told me to. That's why, I think he's being very short-sighted in not dealing with that.
When it comes to the financial support of this conflict in Ukraine, what the Biden administration is forcing the Congress to pass these kind of funds to Ukraine. At the same time, they're talking about confiscating 300 billion in Russian assets. If they do such a thing to Russia, what would be the consequences for China and India or other countries? Are they going to sell U.S. treasuries?
Well, it will accelerate their distancing themselves from the U.S. currency, from holding any deposits in U.S. dollars that could be seized, and holding them in any banks that could be subject to seizure. So, that's why it's really short-sighted on the part of the United States. Just like the imposition of sanctions against Russia was stupid. When they cut Russia off of SWIFT. So SWIFT it's basically an email system for communicating between banks about sending money from one customer to another. Well, when SWIFT was up and operating, every time the Russians, anybody in Russia, any Russian businessman or mafia type would send a wire transfer, that information was going through the United States. The United States was intercepting it. We could read what was going on. We'd know who was moving what money where. Now we don't. That's been cut off. So we're now blind. You don't see. Russia, China, Brazil, India, South Africa are busy coming up with alternatives to SWIFT. I think the United States is going to really live to regret having done this. It'll be on the outside looking in.
In this conflict between Russia and China and BRICS on one side and United States, G7 on the other side, how do you see the position of Europe? Is that possible for them to be independent and not be leaning toward the US or toward Russia and China, being just independent and being a powerhouse and act in their interests?
Europe, a powerhouse? Look, Europe is a mangy poodle. It's not even, it's a tiny little dog. You wouldn't even take it to the dog show to be proud to show it off. It's a joke. The one industrial power that used to be there, Germany, is in the process of deindustrializing itself. The continent is filled with these crazy people who keep talking about climate change. Oh my God, we got to stop using oil. I wish I had the power that everybody that wants to get rid of petroleum products, great. I'll take every single petroleum product from you now. Live without it. Good luck. It's just, they're out of touch with reality. But, that's, I was watching Sky News, and with all that's going on in the world, they spent 20 minutes focusing on the murder of this transgender boy, this boy who thought he was a girl. And, he got murdered, which, I think that's wrong. But they're talking about it, and they got his dad on talking about his son as if he was a girl. Yeah, she was this. Once he grew up, and when you've got a collective mental illness like that infecting Europe, there's no way. Powerhouse, they live with the delusion that they can actually militarily threaten Russia. They keep trying to scare each other. Oh, Russia! Oh, we gotta stop Russia. Russia's going to invade us. Russia's not going to invade you. They don't want the problems. The reason Stalin went into Eastern Europe when he did at the end of World War II was to secure the borders so that they wouldn't have another invasion from the Nazis, the Germans. And lo and behold, here we are 70 years later, and those damn Germans are back supporting neo-Nazis in Ukraine, and these are genuine Nazis, swastikas, praising Hitler, the whole 9 yards, singing the Horst Wessel song, wearing SS insignia. Europe is a toxic mess. They don't have a unified vision. They have embraced this woke agenda that includes glorification of homosexuality, sacrificing modern industry to the altar of climate change, wanting to drive electric vehicles that are made by slave labor. The raw minerals, the rare earth minerals that come out of Africa, create, some of the batteries. That's dug out by children that shouldn't be doing that. But hey, as long as some wealthy cat in France or Germany or Netherlands or Italy can drive around in their electric vehicle and signal that I'm morally superior to you because I'm stopping climate change. It's ridiculous. So no, Russia is going to, as they said at the outset, they're going to denazify. Ukraine. They're going to demilitarize Ukraine. And in the process, they're demilitarizing NATO. NATO already does not have enough inventory of weapons to get, they don't have anything else to give to Ukraine. Tapped out.
I don't know if you saw this video clip of Boris Johnson talking with the young people of the United Kingdom and asking them and persuading them, convincing them to join the military.
Yeah.
Why he's doing this? He's totally insane. What are they really thinking of fighting Russia?
Right now, their army is 70,000 total. Now, of that, if you were going to deploy them into a combat operation, say, okay, you're going to go fight the Russians in Ukraine. At most, you get 30 to 40,000 tops. So let's put those numbers in perspective. Right now, the Ukrainians are saying they need 500,000 new troops, right? So if you recruit 42,000 a month, they got to be trained somewhere. Well, where are you going to train them? Can't train them in Ukraine because it's Russia can bomb and hit every base in there with missiles. So you have to put them in Europe. So you're going to send them to Britain. 40,000 recruits. That's bigger than what the British Army has. They have to sign like one person per Ukrainian. And then where are they going to train? They have to build new bases. The training is going to go on for 13 weeks. For the math challenge out there, that's 3 months. Let's say you recruit 42,000 in January. Well, it's now 1 February. We're going to London to start training, and they're going to train until February, March, end of April. Okay, end of April, they've got basic training. That means they know how to go to the bathroom properly and shave themselves and march in formation. They don't know anything else beyond that as far as carrying out combat operations. And so that 40,000 would eat up all of Great Britain's resources. It's not going to happen. They've got too many people of foreign birth in England, in particular, that no longer feel any loyalty to the crown, to God and country anymore.
It seems that Israel has agreed some sort of ceasefire in Gaza. Is that a rumor, or they're thinking seriously to have a ceasefire in Gaza?
Well, Israel wants to have the ceasefire on its terms. What I've heard seen come out of Hamas is Hamas's basic conditions are, okay, we'll do a ceasefire, pull all Israeli troops out, pull them all out of Gaza and out of the West Bank. Well, Israel's not going to do that. They'll probably pull most of them out of Gaza, yes, because they're getting beat bloody there. They're not securing the entire area at all. It's like that game whack-a-mole, whack here, and then the mole pops over there, and whack there. And Israel's playing a lethal version of whack-a-mole. And they're killing a lot of Palestinian civilians, especially children, pregnant women. But they're not really making much headway against the folks carrying out the military operations.
Is the Biden administration considering some sort of forcing the Netanyahu administration, because they're losing a lot of people in the United States for the presidential election in 2024?
Biden is caught between I like the image of he's caught between the dog and the fire plug. The dog's lifting his leg and going to pee all over Joe. The problem they've got is within the Democrat Party, a lot of the big money donors are Jewish, and they love Israel. And whether you're talking about Steven Spielberg or Bill Ackman at Pershing Square, out of their love for Israel, they will funnel lots of money into Joe Biden. So Biden doesn't want to alienate them. But the voters, the people who actually come out and vote, who outnumber those Jewish donors, particular places like Michigan, they are very vocal and very outraged that Biden is facilitating genocide. He is facilitating the murder of their friends, family, relatives. At almost every campaign event that Biden's had over the last 3 weeks, he's been greeted with chants of "Genocide Joe," "How many kids have you killed today?" "Ceasefire now." And he just stands up there, we talked about this before, looking blankly at the crowd and trying to figure it out. I think there's going to come a time where the pressure from the base, what remains of the Democrat base, is going to be so great to distance itself from Israel that that may happen. Israel's much better off with the Republicans. The Republicans don't quite have that divide. They tend to fall into the pro-Israel camp by a much larger number than in the Democrat Party.
We had an attack on a hospital in the West Bank by Israeli special forces. What was the problem there? I think they killed 3 people, if I'm not mistaken, and
who were unarmed. This was an attack by cowards. They're so-called special operations forces. There's nothing special about them. They're cowards. They're unprofessional. If they really believe these guys were terrorists, well, number one, you'd want to have the information that they have. So capture them. Take them. They could have captured them, taken them prisoner. That would have been appropriate. But to shoot unarmed men laying in bed, one guy who's paralyzed, where's the honor in that? That's what the Nazis did to Jews. So all I can say is I find Israel's tactics and behavior and conduct despicable.
these guys were part of Hamas, were members of Hamas, or
Well, that's what they're claiming, that there were some, big time terrorists. Again, the Israelis can say anything, don't have to provide any proof. It's just like this recent boycott, the decision now to stop, to shut down UNRWA, the United Nations Refugee Work Association, or whatever UNRWA stands for. Initially, it's like 30,000 people in that organization. So initially, Israel claims that there were 12 that were working with Hamas. Well, that's, they shouldn't be working with Hamas if they're with the UN doing relief work, but it was only 12. And then later the Israelis revised the number down, I'm told, to like 6. The West engages in collective punishment. They punish everybody. They treat everybody as if they're guilty. And that's been the biggest sin of Israel, their collective punishment of the Palestinian people. As far as they're concerned, every single Palestinian is a terrorist and should be treated accordingly.
in your opinion, what's going on in Pakistan?
They didn't like Imran Khan because he was too close to Russia. They're doing to Imran Khan exactly what they're trying to do to Donald Trump. I refer to Khan as the Donald Trump of Pakistan. He was a celebrity there too as a soccer player. What the West does not like, the United States in particular, is he wanted to go be independent, do Pakistan's thing, oblivious of what U.S. wanted. They're pushing back on that. That's what's going on.
We know that in the conflict between India and Pakistan, US was always helping Pakistan against India.
Yeah.
And right now they're trying to have some sort of rebuilding their relations with India. How do you see this communication that the Biden administration is trying to do with India?
Well, remember, the main reason the United States sided with Pakistan against India during that period was, going back into the 1970s, India was seen as being closely aligned with the Soviet Union. And Pakistan was going into 1960s. It was a base from which spy planes were being launched over Russia, over the Soviet Union. In fact, I think Francis Gary Powers, who was shot down over the Soviet Union, if I recall correctly, came out of a Pakistani base. I know my wife went on what was called a winter term from her college in January of 73, I believe. She stayed with the family of Bandura Shastri. Bandura Shastri had been the prime minister, and he had gone, in the previous year, he had been on a visit to Moscow, died of a heart attack. So, but it just goes to underscore that there was that relationship between the Soviets and India. And then with the arrival of Imran Khan, he was going to upset that apple cart because he too was going to have good relations with Russia. And so Russia had no desire to provoke confrontation between India and Pakistan, but others, the United States did. So, that's, again, it's one more example of U.S. meddling in the affairs of other countries. All the while, we get so exercised and upset that Russia interference or Chinese interference in our election. How dare they? Meanwhile, that's all we do is interfere in the elections and internal affairs of other countries.